Keshe Foundation, an independent, non-profit, non-religious, space-based organization founded by nuclear engineer Mehran Tavakoli Keshe, is introducing to humanity the science of the universe, plasma science. Keshe Foundation develops universal knowledge and space technologies that provide solutions to major global problems, revolutionizing agriculture, health, energy, transportation, materials, and more. The application of plasma science in the form of specially developed plasma reactors and other devices will give humanity the real freedom to travel in deep space. Plasma science exists throughout the whole universe. It is here and it belongs to you. Our knowledge, research, and development regarding the plasma structure has progressed to the point of enabling everyone to participate in the process. Become a creator and understand the work of the universe for the good of humankind on this planet as well as in space. The use of megravs, nanomaterials, GANs, liquid plasma, field plasma, and other plasma technologies have come as a new dawn for humanity to progress and work in harmony with the universe. Conventional technology applications are wasteful, damaging, and cause pollution to the planet and all living beings. Plasma science provides solutions and improves existing methods and use of resources in all aspects that touch the lives of all beings. Plasma is defined by the Foundation as an entire content of fields which accumulate and create matter and is not defined by its physical characteristics like ionization or temperature. Also, with plasma science, we understand how we can convert matter back to the fields. Quoting from Mr. Keshe, MEGRAV stands for magnetic gravitational, which means plasma absorbs or gives. And every plasma has the both. It has give and it has take. And when they can't find the balance, they distance themselves until they find the balance they can give to the others. That they can receive what they want to receive and give further. Certain atoms and molecules release and absorb magnetic or gravitational fields. Released fields are available to be absorbed by other objects. The Keshe Foundation has developed a way to gather these free-flowing fields from the environment within a resourceful and beneficial new state of transitional matter, which M.T. Keshe named GANs. The first step of the process of the formation of various basic types of GANs is nano-coating metals. This is carried out either chemically by etching, steam coating with sodium hydroxide, or thermally by heating, fire coating by gas burner. During either coating process, gaps between outermost layers of atoms are created. The residual coating is often referred to as nano-coating, defined by the structured layers of nanomaterial, which build up during the creation process of the coating. Nano-coated metal in interaction with other various metal plates in a saltwater solution creates megrav fields. These fields then attract available elements to form a specific GANs, which collects and settles at the bottom of the container. This GANs is formed from independent energized molecules like little suns that can be used in various applications.
Welcome, everyone, to the 191st Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, September 28th, 2017. And I think we can hear Mr. Keshe opening his microphone there in the background. And I think he's eager to talk about today's topic, which is overcoming addiction issues. Addiction issues came up as a question in the last workshop we had yesterday, and Mr. Keshe offered to talk about that today. So, among other topics as well, I'm sure. Mr. Keshe, take it away, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Rick. Good morning to you. As usual, whenever you listen to these Knowledge Seekers series, uh, it is nice to know that teaching is expanding to more or less at least one day a week, every day of the week except Fridays. And I'm sure sooner or later Fridays will find a place for more teaching, that the Keshe Foundation channels are open to public every single day. This has taken a lot of time and a lot of effort, and is thanks to all the members of the Keshe Foundation support teams and different groups which are working in conjunction with each other around the world, and we'll see new dimensions in everything which is happening around the foundation. There are a number of things which, as we come across, we'll discuss today. One point which was raised in one of the teachings this week was about addiction. And I said we can discuss this because I think we have become mature enough to understand how addictions um, can be thought of, can be handled, and how, as a whole, we can look as addiction as something of the past. Now that we extend our knowledge in a different ways and understanding more of the work of the body of the man. But as usual, we start with the members of the Universal Council, Earth Council, and the core team, if they have anything would like to discuss this week, and what they would like to bring about, what it is and what is about to happen. There is one point which I explained to a meeting, and I have to explain it here. After the teaching of last week, the question was, what is the position of Universal Council? The Universal Council, as we've seen, is a connection between the humanity and the universal community. And the job of the Universal Council will become more apparent once we open into the space, and once we come in touch in a way with the universal community. Then the Universal Council members are responsible for the men in the space. Those of you who take in deeper space and would like to, or we come to a point, or we need help, will go back to Universal Council members through their soul. And you'll find out it works very fast, very directly where it is. If you're a Spanish speaking and you're stranded somewhere in deep space or somewhere and you need help, your best bet is that um, um, uh, what we call, they need the support, and then they come into action, where the Earth Council is responsible for the operation of the what I call the man on this planet. There is a lot of things happening around this, and then when you come to Universal Council, you become both between the universal community and the man in a space, where they are there. When they discover something new, you become the communication line. The members of the council will understand their own strength and their own understanding in a more powerful way as we start teaching, and they find out the power, the intuition, the powers they carry with their souls. And as I said, each member of the council receives so much support from the national speaking that they reach a point of reaching all. And this will become more and more powerful as member of council start realizing their own strength in supporting, and their own strength in being able to be there to serve. Do we have any members of any of the councils who would like to speak today?
Morning, Mr. Keshe. It's Elisa, EC4. Australia here.
Yes, EC means Earth Council.
Yes, and I'd just like to also open up a little bit about, you're talking about addiction today, and I think it's extremely important for us to start understanding how the emotion affects our bodies and how our reactions and our perceptions of life in general creates the emotions that can sometimes hamper us in the way we live and our physical body. Because I just feel this has come up a lot lately in the work I've been busy with, and helping some people with cancers and such, and creating breathing units and things like this. And many people that I've given these technologies to find that one of the first things that happens is that certain anger issues come up come to the fore, that they can look squarely in the eye and then release, and they feel mature enough to be able to let go of the anger that I suppose sometimes is very deep-seated and deep-rooted probably within all of us, because we've all had situations where we don't feel in control and we can't do certain things. And this brings up anger that we bury quite deep. And I think it's part of our learning process how to deal with these things. And for many years, I've studied psychology and looked at different avenues, and I always felt there needed to be some way that we can deal with our issues. And as you said before, look at things without sentimentality, but still feel deeply and be able to connect on a deep level with everybody around us without our baggage in the way. And so I'd be very grateful to hear whatever you have to say on these things about the addiction, but also just in general about how we can help to clear and clean all the emotional baggage that we do so have attached to us from just living on the planet. And I know the Ganses help to a great extent, but I find it's not like a pill. When you take it, it doesn't take away the pain or the anger, but it allows you to look at it squarely and move on from it. So that's all I'd like to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Any other comment by any other members of the councils?
Yes, good morning. It's Rui speaking. UC from Portuguese language. UC means Universal Council. Are you listening me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to just make some point. As Lisa said, our behavior we must free ourselves from the repeat behavior that in emotional looks like and it becomes like an addiction. So if you can explain how you can make free from that, and it's will be very nice for because our thoughts, our behavior, way to do things, sometimes they repeat themselves and works in our soul like an addiction. So what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment?
Ursula has her hand up. Maybe she has something to say.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr.
Good
Keshe.
morning.
Good morning to all of you. I would speak about fears. Fears, addictions are fears also. It's a lack of knowledge. And I hear yesterday a video from Idris in French. He talks about knowledge that is a broken mirror. Some believe that they know it all, but we are just starting to know a little bit of this all. And if we start to study what we are studying here on the foundation, and there are so many other foundations and people sharing knowledge, we can hear them and then make our own decision to our own feelings, and be very careful to be humble to what is coming and what we can do for the universe to help others. It's huge amounts of help that we can do only with carrying our guns, helping others. It's so important. And starting for us, for our friends, neighbors, and all the friends we know, and they don't believe very much what they're talking, but keep on, stay on, and make it, and learn yourself. It's the most important way you can do. It's all what I want to say.
Thank you very much. I think the other two participants, you forgot to speak in your own local language, or what they call in your national language, which you have chosen.
I can do it if you want. I'm very glad to do it also. Estaba hablando sobre los miedos que podemos tener, sobre todo en adicciones. ¿Qué es miedo nada más? Es la falta de conocimiento. Ayer estuve escuchando un video de Idris, una excelente persona, 3 doctorados, que hablaba que el conocimiento era solamente espejos rotos, que muchos entre nosotros creemos saberlo todo, pero sabemos muy poco. Estamos compartiendo conocimiento, es lo más importante. Ese poco que sabemos tenemos que compartirlo para poder ayudar a los otros a entenderlo. Nosotros mismos estamos aprendiendo hoy, y con eso podemos ayudar mucho, porque vamos a amplificar ese conocimiento para transmitirlo. Una persona que sabe no tiene miedo, no tiene adicciones o puede controlarse y puede ayudar mucho a los otros. Es eso de lo que se trata hoy con la fundación. Es todo lo que quería decir. Les deseo un muy lindo día.
Thank you very much. Rui, if you would like to explain the same thing in Portuguese, and if Lisa would like to address it in Africano, which is your mother language.
Yes, it's Rui speaking. I can say in Portuguese. O que eu falei há pouco como ponto de referência seria que fosse explicado como funciona a adição de pensamentos e de sentimentos que nós, cada um de nós, por uma forma de agir e de pensar, se torna, nos prende a um determinado comportamento e não nos permite estar livres para fazer outras coisas, e tanto funciona como se fosse uma adição, um vício. Então, eu gostava que fosse explicado como é que o senhor Keshe explicasse como é que se pode libertar-nos de nós mesmos, porque uma forma de comportamento cíclica também nos prende a uma determinada maneira de estar e de reagir, e que nos prende à realidade em vez de libertar o nosso espírito em ordem de poder-nos entender a criação e nós como criadores também, a nossa alma. Thank you. I just finished.
Thank you very much. Lisa, would you like to address in Africano, if you still remember?
Mr. Keshe, I'm going to have to decline. It was always my second language, and I haven't spoken it for 8 years,
Oh.
and so they'd probably laugh at me if they heard me.
Doesn't
So
matter.
they all
You
speak
still
English.
can
They
address.
all speak English anyway.
But as you know, Keshe Foundation in South Africa is very big. And
Yes, I know.
it would be nice to address in your what do you call it, native language.
Well,
We
my
won't
native language is English.
so you can still
So,
address in Afrikaner if you like. You can try.
I'm going to just say goeiemôre. Ek kan nie so goeie Afrikaans praat nie, maar ek sal my best probeer om volgende keer 'n bietjie van die taal te praat. So that's all I'm going to say, because I just said that I don't speak Afrikaans very well, and I'll try next time to speak if I practice a little bit first.
Thank you very much. I understood more or less all of it. It's like Dutch, so it's very easy. Thank you very much. Is anybody else would like to participate? Other members of the Universal Council, you have to start understanding that you are part of this setup, part of this change. And people who have you taken responsibility for the soul of conduct, you are responsible to share knowledge and what I call emotion with, that you can build the bridges that in time of need there is there. You cannot stay silent and if you speak. It's 20 odd members of the Universal Council. Build the courage. That's why you became a member of the council, to change things, not just to be there as a number and a name. Any other participation?
Mr. Keshe, this is Dr. Parviz from Dubai. Hi.
Hello, Dr. Parviz. Nice to hear you.
Thank you.
Member of the Earth Council.
Yes. What about the social factors? You know, in many societies, due to social disappointments, a lot of people are pushed towards addictive behavior or using addictive substances because there is nothing else they could do. And this is a way to compensate the emotional or spiritual pain they go through. And we see this clearly in Iran today. A lot of these problems is raised due to the social oppressions, due to other issues, due to the disappointments that are imposed on individual because the society is not balanced, as not moving towards a balanced line. How do we address that using the plasma technology, I mean? Thank you.
Would you like to address it in Farsi?
Sure. سوالی که من پرسیدم اینه که خیلی مواقع علت رفتار اعتیاد آور یا استفاده از مواد اعتیادزا به دلیل این هستش که مردم یا اون اشخاص دچار ناامیدی شدید هستن در اثر کمبودهایی که جامعه نتونسته براشون حل کنه. دیگه به حدی میرسه که واقعا چاره‌ای نمی‌بینن و زندگی باید ادامه پیدا بکنه. اینا یه جوری اون درد عاطفی و روانی که نارسایی‌های شدید اجتماعی براشون ایجاد کرده و در کنترل اینها نیست رو باید درمان کنن در خودشون. اینه که پناه میارن به موادی که بتونه برای یه مدت کوتاهی شاید این حالت خوش بودن رو به اونا برگردونه یا حداقل بگم که شاید باعث بشه که فراموش بکنن دردی که دارن. بعد متوجه میشن که حالا آلوده‌ای ماده‌ای شدن که دیگه نمیتونن کنارش بذارن. سوال من این بود که چطور میشه با استفاده از تکنولوژی پلازما اینجور مسائل هم به هر حال یه جورایی در این مردم کمک کرد و حلشون کرد.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parviz. Maybe we can address this in different ways. Partially, what we see in the social structures is not just to do with Iran. We've seen it in the Middle East. We see it in Europe in different shape or form. We see it in America in different forms. We see it in Chinese society and other nations, nationalities, and cultures. The problem is not so much what is the how can we change it? The problem is how much we can change the fundamentals, the basics, the essence of it. In Iran, we know the situations. In other countries, the same. Social structure restrictions through different conducts of the governments to be in favor of one side or the other, or one belief or the other. In the programs and the works of the Keshe Foundation, I'm fully aware of this. I've been fully aware of this for quite some time, some 20, 30 years. I'm a child of the Iranian Revolution. I was in it when I was in university. We got involved in it by touching us in education. In a way, so much unknown came to be known, which later on we found out it was not even real to be known. And these pressures comes on the society and the people who go through these conditions, revolutions. We see it in North Korea, we see it even in Japan. Is not an open society. There's a lot of restriction. Society, children, adults, youth respond to what looks to be normality, but it's not normality. Most of these things comes from creation of nations, creation of division to be identified, to be, we are separate. If you look at the structure even in Iran, in other countries, it's all, the first thing they teach us is history. And then whatever is there, we are special, we are this, we are that, we are conquerors and the rest of it. And so we do what we like. If we eliminate this part from the history of man, from the books of the man to know, we solve a lot of problems. Situation like, as you said, social factors. Social factors comes when the youth cannot show the talent. Border has been put in order. We heard in past week, the American presidents creating new sanctions for 8 countries which are mainly Islamic. And then what happened to these youth? They stay in, they can't go anywhere. They become radical in a way trying to escape, or as you said, they get into different groups, or they become addicts and the rest of it. The solution to this is one nation. The solution to change these social factors is to bring everybody to become one. Everybody to be part of one family, that there are no borders. This is the whole plan of one nation. It won't take us long. Keshe Foundation in the background is working on these things to make social factor. If you're in Iran, it does not matter. You are there. We make you part of the one nation. As part of this, in a coming time, in a very short time, the Keshe Foundation management team has been, in a way, consulted, and in the next few weeks you will see what we call the One Nation passports will be issued. This is the cornerstone. It's blue in color, gold in writing. Blue carrying the sign of the planet Earth, which is blue, and gold is the sign of the soul of the man, which is a giver. With this, we add into it the banking system. We allow social structure change, which means by one nation, by number of people who accept to carry one nation passports, one nation ID card, because it's not a passport anymore, we don't need to pass anywhere, is we are identified who we are, the place of birth, which continent, and that's all we need to know. On these cards, national cards, carries automatically a bank account, which means you become connected to one structure, which means financially we support. These are part of the things which are happening in the background. As part of it is the banking of the Keshe Foundation system. We cannot change. We are not going to fight. To fight these structures takes a lot of energy. Setting a new structure that people who believe in it, to join in it, to change it, is much easier. This is the path we've taken. And the management team and the people in the background, advisors, senior advisors, government advisors, which sit with us, we see this as a first solution, as more or less the only solution. In the coming weeks, you can go on the Keshe Foundation website and ask for your One Nation passport, One Nation ID card. And as we increase the numbers in matter of millions, then we state one nation government. We negotiate with the governments as we are doing, that anybody carries one nation certificate is guaranteed life equal across this planet. Everything in the background is getting done. A lot of progress is getting made. We do not talk anymore not to block, not to create people trying to abuse the system to block us. We saw a senior minister nearly lost his job in Africa for these stupidities. So we now speak in background. We are planning things in the background. Most probably by next week or the week after, you will see the first copies of these ID cards. Is one nation, one planet, one race. Is the logo of the Keshe Foundation. Means you can trust. We don't look at no past records. We don't look at if you're a minister or you're a builder or you're a doctor. Your education is there for us to know, for you to be identified as what level of the soul you carry, not what paper you've been given to carry. These are the changes which we bring. These are the things which will change the emotion when we allow, and then we can go into the numbers. When we reach a factor number that we negotiate for taxation with governments for the members of the Keshe Foundation across the planet. These are all will progressively be done. It's getting set up. Banking system is getting set up. The ID card is getting set up. It needs a lot of computers setting up that anywhere in the world you can be identified. You can be there, that when you cross a country border at a moment, when you carry the Keshe Foundation, one nation, and on the back of it, you have signed the World Peace Treaty that you not take part in any conflicts, you do not incite. This is your past. This is why we asked you to sign to it. Some people might abuse the system, but on the other hand, it's understandable. It's for us to create a condition that then there is nobody to boycott a nation, a man who's born by birth in a place. There is a huge discussion going on at a very high level internationally, a boycott of all Americans from across the world. They call it terrorism because of the thing. We see a pattern with American nationals and some European nations that the Americans move to sell arms. So we stop these from this to happen. A national boycott of the American citizens is highly likely by the governments which are working in the background through BRICS. Which means the movement of the Americans now they become the terrorist organizations. They become a nation which they have to change to show they're not producing arms. BRICS will push with this through. Because it's the only solution, and it's been put forward by Keshe Foundation. BRICS and the supporters of BRICS, we build into it. We have to do it. Because who becomes a terrorist if you don't sell arms to? Nobody is nobody's enemy. So if there is a discussion, and it will go on tables of the United Nations most probably in the next 2 years, that any nation who produces arms, it'll be recognized as a terrorist organization, as a terrorist nation. Which means governments have to think there is no need to build arms anymore. Let's put the money back into effort to create peace. We call them terrorists. They carry bombs, they carry guns. But where did they come from? Produced in the nations who make them a terrorist. So in a way, we solve the problem from the root. If you're an American, in a very short time, in the next couple of years, you have to confirm who you are before you travel. Because the cards are changing. The governments are realizing this terrorism doesn't matter in what shape or color, even in America. It's done by those who create the arms. And if this comes into effect, if the world leaders, 4 or 5 nations across the world start putting ban on the movement of the Americans become aware of what it needs to be done. None of the Americans are terrorists. How come the rest are terrorists? How come we have to kill to justify? How come we see these kind of misbehavior and then the ones who are cause of producing the material are not put in the front? But If the boycott of the Americans and the European nations or other nations who manufacture arms become a terrorist activity, then we'll see. When you get all Americans cannot even come into Europe, cannot come into Asia, cannot go to Africa. This will change position. This is the only solution. Then we see there is no more borders, there is no more nationhood. It's all one nation. If the amount of money is spent on arms by Western world, on tool of peace, this planet will be heaven even for the ants. In Farsi we have one beautiful poet. It says, "Mayazar muri ke danishkesh ast, ke jan darad o jan shirin khosh ast." Means, do not even hurt an ant. It's got life, and that life is sweet. These operations, these social structures shutdowns that people have to do because of the religion or whatever, if these are moved, that we become all free to understand, we can believe in anything anymore, as long as we are responsible, peaceful people, becomes the next step. In so many ways, when we reach millions of people signing for one nation passport, we become one nation. We force nations to accept the carriers of these documents as peaceful people. There are different speaking languages. There will be no nation on the card. Then we boycott all the German speaking, we boycott all the Spanish speaking, we boycott all the Iranian speaking, then we boycott all the Chinese speaking, but where can we stop them? This is the progress. This is how we change these social factors. The social factors in Iran is because of the restriction that the Iranians go. I mean, I live out of Iran for 40 odd years, but I still carry Iranian passport. I'm proud to carry my passport, place of my birth. But I've been singled out because I carry Iranian. There are these restrictions, that restriction. But who's the terrorist? Why do the Americans produce guns? The real terrorists are those who carry weapons, not the ones who use it. So this system has to change. And part of this, we work very closely with people around the BRIC and around the United Nations to make a new offense. Any nation manufactures arms is considered a terrorist nation. Then the countries, they'll be given the time to overcome, but it'll come very soon. Because the truth is, if we don't carry the arms, we don't create terrorists. We create people who will talk. We create a community that they will find position to talk. I advise those of you who look and be listening in the past few days, this nation, that nation, that nation, all majority Islamic nations are terrorists. Full stop. Now, anybody who produces guns, create wars, is a terrorist nation. Very soon, American citizens will find difficulty getting visas in any nation. Many people will return their American passports because they can't even go back home where they came from. This is how we change the social structure. This is how we have to change the social structure. And then all these addictions, why is it there? Why is it encouraged by some nations to be done? Why we get to these points? These are all part of what we need to address. These are part of to change the structure fundamentally from the base. Peace means restructuring. Peace means compromise for reality. Peace means nations who push for oneness, for correctness, have to be promoted. Nations go and produce arms just to protect themselves from the other arms, which has already been created. And then they are told why. The banking system creates these conditions. Poverty creates division. This is the beauty of what we are bringing out. This is what's happening. If people were aware of what's happening in the background in the Keshe Foundation, the structure of the Keshe Foundation, we are setting up a condition that all those who carry the card, as I said, carry a bank account on it. Means anywhere in the world, you don't need to do any crime. You can call upon the rest of the Keshe Foundation support team. All the assets, all the incomes of the Keshe Foundation, factories, production, donations, whatever comes in, goes into that account. It's the bank will be owned by the Keshe Foundation. And then you can call upon it. Some people might abuse it, buy a car here or whatever there, but we'll see. But when you know, if you buy that, if you extend it, there is another man in Africa will die because of hunger, the money is not there, we start structuring ourselves. We need to understand the change, but conduct our own correctness through our own soul. The way is planned, the way you will see in the coming time. It took us it took you to understand the teaching. Now you see the space technology, you see the energy, you see the banking system, you see the One Nation passports. These things all come into effect. In the next 2 years, Keshe Foundation will become a global force. Not if I'm here or not, because you have decided. Because you start understanding it's your soul which is responsible, and not your physicality of the others. Social structure, changes in society. Why should scientists who publish papers on the Iranian in Canada do not exist? Why Canadians? Why so much target by the Canadians, Americans on the Iranians and the Islamic world or in Europe? We have to understand where the pressure comes from. What's the reason? And it's not time to fight anymore. It's time to introduce a new dimension, that those who are after fighting or creating that condition have no one to fight with. If the American passport holders go under pressure that they cannot travel, all the Americans have to go back to their country. All the European nations who create arms have to go back. Then we'll see the changes. No one in supermarkets, no one in the banking will allow any American to buy food outside America. It means we push back. The warmongering goes back to where it came from. There is a lot of changes which is getting organized internationally, because governments are getting fed up. How much can you compete? Buy another nuclear. This situation with North Korea has brought a lot into face. Iran was a target of nuclear for years. I opened a negotiation. We got 5+1 negotiation. And now it's North Korea. They are going too far. There is no doubt. North Korean situation is not acceptable. But on the other hand, why? Who's financing it? Who's teaching it? We know all this. We see the information in the background. But what's the next nation to create war? Why do we have to this point? I've been on the border of North Korea and South Korea. I was taken there by the government. I've sat by the unification ministers in breakfast twice, 3 times. How can we change the position in North Korea? What about how can we change the whole planet? Those who understand these things have to start making a move. Do we need to rely on a banking of war, or do we need to rely on the banking of peace? The true way. The billions of dollars, trillions of dollars sits in Vatican. Why is it getting used for war? Why the leaders of the Catholic Church do not put it for new way, peaceful way, not by talk in the front and creation of war in the background. The same goes with the Rothschild family, the same goes with the others. They have to understand, not by damage, but every member of these organizations have to understand their soul is responsible for what is happening. The Keshe Foundation, the way you are setting it up and the way it's getting organized, will become the structure for man to walk itself to peace. But nobody has had the will to do it. Nobody had the knowledge to do it, to change it, and nobody could structure it to do it. We have, we can, and we're doing it so quietly but so effectively. In the coming time, you will see, once we open the banking system, once we open the, what I call identity of the place of language, then we'll see we negotiate for even taxation for the members of the Keshe Foundation government. When you have 1, 2, 3 million people in a country, we negotiate as a bulk, which means the difference can go back into humanity. We negotiate taxes for peace. We negotiate, everything is negotiable. But time for change has come, and I've taken the leadership in this. Doesn't matter if I get killed or not, but it's your job to carry on. The structure is not to fight. The structure is to set a new path, a new way. But for everyone to understand, it's their soul which is responsible. If this new school of thought, which is growing rapidly in the developing world, which they want to finance instead of the armies in the nations, to boycotting the nations which create arm, we will see a lot of problem. A lot of problem for the, what we call, leading nations, because the money came through. There is a new structure in the world banking. It's getting looked at too. We are working on the GDP. We just taken an example. There is a medicine in Europe which you can buy for around about $50 or 50 euro. The same medicine in another European country can be bought for 35. The same medicine, the same pack in United States is sold around about $350. So if the GDP goes according to the expenditure, do we take the 35 or we take 50? And then you see the expenditure in America is 7 times more. So Americans, because they create finance by 7 times more inflation in their accounting, now you divide the GDP of United States by 5 or by 7. And then you see United States is not a leading nation. It's a bankrupt nation. A lot of things through our work, our teaching, is opening up the eyes of the other nations. Is the GDP by equal? There was an example of Big Mac being the currency measurement. How much to pay for a Big Mac in each country, and then you understand the actual value of the market. These are the things which fighting will take time. We are restructuring from inside. Everything is taking time. The factories which come into operation, we are not looking outside to finance us, to influence us. We are looking for those who are around the Keshe Foundation to come in to bring the change to be done. And it's getting done very effectively. We are talking new technology. We are talking huge, huge return on the investment of all of you on your knowledge. Those of you who develop, you come in, you get developed. We put the system in. Everything is getting structured internally. Then the benefit of it goes into the central bank. The central bank of the KF won't be hidden, is on the table for the management to see where assets sits, where we can move, where we can make available everything for as many people as possible. We take responsibility of one nation. In a coming time, we'll appoint ministers, people responsible for finance, people responsible for banking, people responsible for peace, people responsible for agriculture, but the new way, the new understanding. All these in the pipeline is coming through slowly, because structures have to be there before it's done. We receive support from governments and we appreciate it. We understand it. We need economists who work on the economy of peace, not an economy of exaggeration. If now understanding that everything is connected to each other and the knowledge for it is there, then we have broken through. In start producing the one nation ID cards, one nation, because you don't have anywhere to pass. You are on one nation. It's just when you arrive, who I am, identify me, there is no bars you walk through. There is no waiting, if I can allow you in my country. You are in your own country, it does not matter where you go. Then the peace comes. Then these monies created for division becomes money for creating unity. It takes time. It's not a dream. We're setting all the structure up. The factories have been reset totally in a way to support the nation. All the factories we're setting up now are getting structured to support a nation, not a small factory that it does something small. With it, we carry the nation, we support the nation, we support the whole humanity as one nation. With it comes the other things. We need to change the way we think. Then we don't have social factor structures. We have growth for everyone to benefit. We will see 5 or 10% abuse. When I used to work for Marks and Spencer's years ago, one of the managers told me very simple. We consider 10% loss by privilege means stealing. But we put 8% of the preparation through the management and the staff, because our staff is still more than our people, customers on the street. I asked him how. He said, look at it. A bag of potato here, something else there, whatever is there, it builds up to a lot. And there's 200 people working there, each one taking one bag of potato, one chicken there, one there. You look what it does. We don't lose that much on the floor. There will be some people who think abuse. We've seen it in last week. We explained in Peru, and we saw it in Germany with people who are charging $600 for a weekend in the name of the foundation, and we shut it down. There is no collaboration with the Keshe Foundation, who was setting itself to be a Keshe Foundation. There we have no connection with them anymore because of the abuse and other things. Nothing came back to the foundation. Nothing came back to teach others freely. It all came, what is in it for me? So all the Keshe Foundation worldwide are going under one roof, all through one banking, all through one organization. In a way, we're setting up one nation, peaceful nation, and we support. A lot of people will join us to get benefit financially by it. We are aware of it. But in a time, it doesn't become what's happening in EU with like the Moroccans or the Turks. One person lives in Europe and the rest of the family in Turkey get paid for it. This is not correct. We understand the problems which European correct conduct has created for itself, but abuse of some. These things come to the point that they have to understand it's not us taking from them, it's us taking from our soul. Is what am I doing when I carry the idea of the Keshe Foundation as a citizen of this world? I'm not the taker. I give more. I put more time in. I teach free. I clean the streets, but I know my child will not go hungry. I can go to the bank and I can take the money to feed them. If I feel to take them to a restaurant tonight, I can do it, because now it's not me, it's the whole Keshe Foundation family who supports me. It becomes a new evolution in understanding of social structure. It's not a dream anymore. I've done all of it. Everything has been set and it'll come true. It's not a fantasy. It's not something, it's a reality which will come true, because supporting it with our own technology, supporting it with our own factory, supporting those who need it to be there in front line. You see in Africa, now 2 months, we moved out of Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. We've taken a new place. We are paying our staff the same as they were working. Because this is correct. It's not them, it's a condition forced upon us, but as a foundation, we have the position to do. We keep our staff. We don't put them on the street. They're highly educated. It took us time to train. But in time, they've seen us being loyal to them. They stay loyal to the foundation, to the work of the foundation in Africa. The same with other places. We don't talk. We don't teach. We live the life. I live a comfortable life the way it suits me. But at the same time, I work 24 hours a day. I take when I need what I need, and I enjoy in sharing everything else with others. We walk into the situation. The condition is we have to change the social structure. Why should be a ban on the Iranians, ban on the Muslims, where actually most of the funding of United States and British government comes from the oil which the Saudi Arabia deposits the money in their accounts? We're taking it and we're punishing them. World leaders have to understand new criteria. They have to learn to negotiate with Keshe Foundation. And we conduct ourselves correctly. The management team of the Keshe Foundation meets every week. We, at this moment, organize everything which is needed to be the foundation correct to come up. We talk, we consider, we work in a way of a long-term plan for changing humanity. Most of us work 24 hours a day. If there is a need for a sleep, we sleep. But the rest is development, changing, bringing, negotiating. We have teams of people who are setting this structure. We negotiate with governments in a different way than it is in public. We respect them, we honor them. We respect the American president as much as we respect the Chinese president. They are the head of nations, but they have to both understand it's time for peace. It's time for change. Instead of spending so much money on harming that somebody might do harm, what about I do so good that there is no harm can be done? We have to change. We have to understand the change. It's for us, not for them to understand. It's for us, not for them to do. We have to explain what the peace is, what it means. It means change. It means the correct conduct. It means I do not spend my money, the nation money, on somebody to be killed. I spend on saving somebody's life. The social structure you speak about in Iran is created out of internal restrictions and external restrictions. But when the Iranians or the Arabs or the Jews or the Christians find out there is no restriction, it's me, it becomes a public teaching knowledge that is me who's responsible for my conduct, is me who can elevate myself, my education and everything else through my way, then we don't have these things. We have allowed it to happen and we accepted certain nations to be superior than others. Now there is one nation, nobody is more superior than others. In our agreements with the governments, there is a wish I read before, and that is everything will be done. The first 3-4 parts of all our negotiations relates our cooperation, our delivery of technology, our work has to be primarily assured by peace application, use of it for peaceful application, and change of the government to a peaceful government. The One Nation Bank cannot be stopped because one nation, one planet structure allows us this. These social factors will be taken out in a very, very short time. I hope the management team of the Keshe Foundation can put all the programs in order in the next 3-4 weeks for people to start to be able to take over and sign in for One Nation card. We'll see how it's done. We have to see how the structure, our webmasters and the management team and the servers which we have to put into operation will come into operation. We have no financial restriction. Internally, foundation supports itself. If you want to support, you know where to go. But it costs a lot of time. It costs a lot of commitment, and we'll change it. When we commit ourselves to peace, we have to change the whole understanding of what peace is. We have to understand how we change the social structure. That these social structures does not push one to addiction, then we have to find a solution for addiction. If you look at drug trafficking, drug production, where does it come from? Go back into Chinese history with Hong Kong. How so many people were made deliberately addict in China to push the Chinese to give Hong Kong to the English. Didn't the Chinese put all the addicts on the boats and throw them overseas? Or in the oceans? Overboard. Because they could not handle it till they gave the Hong Kong. Why should a nation use this? Why should a nation launch war on the other one to get it? What about I feed people? There is trillions sitting in the Western banks, which is stolen from other nations or by misconduct. That's not the wealth of a nation anymore. It belongs to all of us. It has to be reused for all of us. How much money sits in Vatican? Why doesn't the Islamic world in the mosques or the Vaticans or Jewish community or the Buddhist, all these properties you have, change it to place? You need a small place to pray if you believe in what you believe. The rest of these lands has to become, the rest of this money has to become building homes for people. It creates a new condition of economy. It brings, some people will abuse, but we teach them. We need to go out to teach that people don't abuse. Why do we see these things? The social structure changes. Why then it pushes people to addiction? What is addiction? As Dr. Parvi said, he's a medical doctor. It's just escapism for a few minutes. What about if we elevate the soul of these people, their emotion, that they see a new way? I was talking in one of the teachings past few days, in Iranian culture, in Iranian community, we have a very famous singer called Dariush. Go on the internet, you hear him. When he goes anywhere, he's totally one of the most popular singers in the world, in the Iranian community. He was addict. He overcome it, and he goes around teaching people how to overcome. But it needs a lot of strength. Now we have a technology. We can give that a strength, a new insight, that this is not there, and then you can cover it. Why do we become addicts? I have planned a full social structure from zero, considering we've come to a new place, we set a new rule. 500 years ago, we found America, we built a nation which now has become the biggest killing machine in the world. Now we walk on planet Earth as nothing exists before, and we set a new structure. This is the only way to do it. This is not being big-headed. This is being correct, because we cannot change thousands of years of views and everything else. And then we negotiate. Very much when the white went to America, negotiated with each Red Indian chief and tribe. We have to do the same again, but this time is peaceful. We give both financially and we give both to the soul. We teach a new ethos and we change governments to one government. As I said some times ago, world banking is the backbone of it, because then you pay your, what you call taxes, to one bank, and we negotiate with governments. You negotiate with governments. Equal taxation for everyone across this planet. Equal reach to wealth across this planet. In a very near future, we launch machinery that you can buy out of Keshe Foundation, that you can produce anything you like. Give me another 4 or 5 weeks, hopefully it'll be in the market. You want to produce gold, we give you gold. You want to produce silver, you can produce silver. You want to produce energy for food, you produce energy for food. We have set up the factory, it's getting done. We have taken the location. This factory will produce all this, that the rest of the people around the world, we said, we come through knowledge. Governments have to understand how this is going to be done. When you can walk with 10 kilos of gold into a shop or into a bank, I want to sell, the guy next door to you and the guy behind you has 10 kilos the same, is the same. Then becomes irrelevant. Then when you can produce the energy for food in the energy level, not in the matter level, you don't go hungry, you don't need to fight for hunger. Then you're elevated to a soul as a peaceful man. You go out, you serve, you do something positive. It's not a dream anymore. We have all the things. It's been shown in past 4 or 5 years in all the teachings, but you all missed it. Now we're putting it into action. Now we're putting it in a position to be perfect. Keshe Foundation in One Nation is working to take all these things which are given to animals to be taken out. What about the soul of the plants? What about the soul of the trees? What about how do we have them? What is the soul that we should not touch? These all needs new teaching. 2 ways. You gotta fight. You've seen the battles we had with these Belgians. There will be no nation of Belgians, I assure you. It'll come into operation once we issue the passports, what they call the IDs. French speaking, Dutch speaking, German speaking, Italian speaking. There is no nation of Belgium. It's gone. Because there is no national language. Flemish is the Dutch. It's part of the Dutch. It becomes secondary language. It's a subsidiary. Speak a fluent German, you speak French. French is gone. The nation is not a nation anymore. I told you it'll be done. Everything is planned the correct way. There's a question mark. Would we give IDs to the Belgian citizens? Yes, we will. Do we consider as part of our work? Yes, it is. They belong to us, they are part of us. But do we change the structure? Internationally, we will. It will come as a rapid evolution, but it had to be done the correct way. Now we step correct way. You go in online, you sign for your ID card, your new ID, your identity as a human race, where you were born, what language, which village, no nation, which continent, if you want it to be. If you are international, you are born free. You need access to the funds to be able to live, escape from a disaster. It'll be there. This is not a dream. You got to understand the potential of this technology and what it brings, and the people around us who are waiting for us to take leadership. Now we take. The Keshe Foundation team with the core team, Universal Council, the Earth Council, becomes the new leaders. Will lead correct. We lead through one path. Peace and correct conduct. A lot will kick and shout, and a lot will devote their lives to change. We have the opportunity to do, we have created the opportunity ourselves, and we will do. We will not ask anymore, are you hungry? We do not ask, do you want to come to me? Can I get you a visa? You come to me because I love you and I look after you, and it's my job, I come to serve. Americans will travel to serve nations, not to kill nations. That will be the beauty of the nation. That will be how we will change. Not other nations creating war machines to stop what they are developing to kill them. We have direct access to Vatican. We will ask them to release funds into the right way as part of the Keshe Foundation organization. We have access to Islamic world. We have access into the Jewish community. We have access to all sorts. But our negotiations are very simple. We take to create peace. You play with us the same principle. The Keshe Foundation, KF Global Banking will change things. The same as we said with the blue telephones. This is your line. This is the way it will come. Everything is getting organized. So, as Dr. Pavi said, social factors, we try to change the social factors which are falsely created because of the domination and forcing some people's rules over the others because of what they've seen. In a very near future, in the next 2-3 months, all the members of the council will meet in Rome. This is not a public meeting that others can join. Only members of the councils, the core team, the Keshe Foundation Universal Council, the Keshe Foundation Earth Council, they'll meet in Rome in the coming months. And they will start taking charge, governing through correct conduct. Do we need to? Yes, we do. Do we have to? Yes, the time is there for it. When we set up the banking, the ID cards, and the structure, the governing body will take over. And then we can start the peace process in a true way. You need to go on the website. We create it. You ask for your ID, your family if they want to be. You don't force no one. They have to commit themselves to peace. I lose my job. I work in defense technology or arm manufacturing. What's going to happen? We support. We'll support people to walk away from our production in a very heavy way. We'll explain how. By literally diminishing the use of arms, they'll come back to accept the life the way it has to be. The reason nations support gun manufacturing and arms is just because it gives people to have something to do, not to create a revolution inside the country. But the world leaders have got it the wrong way. We don't produce arms. We produce tools of peace and we give more to our people. Our people, the governments, becomes one nation government. We pay more and more for the same kilo of rice every year. But where? Why? For what reason? It's the same thing. If I stop using it, if I stop eating it, but I can walk to a machine and get the same energy, the farmer has nothing to sell, the price collapses. Then it becomes a fair price. If I'm hungry as a pleasure, I buy rice. The wireless technology which we're going to release is not just for energy as a light, as a heat. It's for food. I'll change everything in a strain, in a grain of the man that man has no need to fight for. But man will be proud to serve. Everything is set up. It's just literally putting the last screws into the hinge for the door and the wall to start working together. It takes years to put a management team together, which work the same as you. And the management of the Keshe Foundation is perfect. This comes by working, knowing, trusting, and understanding is only one target. And these people will stay as the running of the head of the Keshe Foundation the way it is, and they will be there. And those who join us have to learn from us, being there and served. So, the social factor will not be there as we start working to change, to bring a new social structure. And if I hear from what I hear, the ban on American citizens' travel comes into operation as a terrorist nation, then God help us. Who's going to use the first nuclear bomb? But I've given a surety we deplete it. The table changes, the table will turn. If this policy and goes through BRIC and comes out and gets effective, there is no harm done. No American will be harmed. The same as what is their policy. What is good for the goose is good for gander. What is good for the rest of the nations to become terrorists is the same for the Cabal to call us the terrorist. When I was a little boy, one day there was a commotion on the street, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and everybody was on the street, and everybody was talking, a thief, a thief. And then the thief was amongst the people who was shouting at him because he didn't want to get caught. And the guy who was robbed saw the thief in the middle and said, "This is him." And then they got him. And it's this situation with the American situation and the rest. Call everybody terrorists to create terrorism to do. Why are we terrorists? Why wasn't there in 1972? Wasn't there in 1979? Because it paid, does not pay anymore. Now it pays to be all peaceful. World governments have no choice but to accept the new ground force. World banking system, we don't touch. We just create a new way. One bank for all. With access for all. But we release the systems that produce as much gold and silver too. We release the systems that it feeds you to. We release the system that gives you energy to. I kept these on the promise of one nation signing the contract, an agreement. And I'm waiting, and His Excellency knows it will be done. The process is very simple. How we change it is in our hand, and if we miss this opportunity, when would it be the next? Because this new technology will be used to create new weapons, new arms, or this new technology will be used to create peace forever on this planet. And the choice is the second one, not the first one. In a coming time, we'll call, not we call, they will call for the world religious leaders to meet to end it all. In a coming time, the world leaders meet to end with the world leadership, to work as one. Then the finances will go towards peace application and everything else, and the space development. Any other question? I hope I answered you, Dr. Parvis, in a very fundamental way.
Okay, if there's none of the panelists that wants to speak right now, there is I believe a student, Boris, who's an attendee. I'll promote him to a panelist. He had his hand up.
If it's to do with the topic which we discuss.
We also have Boniface. Yes, let's remind people to stick to the topic that's been at hand here. Okay. Boris, so would you like to go ahead?
Yes, hello everybody. It has to do with that what you was talking about. First of all, thank you for all that you are doing. I find it very, very interesting. And I would like to add something because I'm studying a little bit the structure of financing of governments and everything. And I find out that we all have a bank account without knowing. And I don't know if you know about that when we are registering.
This was raised before. We are quite aware of what is being raised, what you want to talk about.
Okay. And there is a lot of money. I think it would be interesting if we could put that money from there to the foundation to finance peace and take it out from the governments who finance war.
In the coming time, we'll go that way, but we have to show we are independent enough that we are listened to.
Okay.
This is, you can talk a lot, but you have to be able to show what you have, and this structure is getting set up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Boniface, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening.
Like to say where you are from, please.
Well, I'm here in California, but I was born in Ghana many, many years ago.
You're a Ghanaian.
Yes.
You're welcome.
I got something to share. May I continue?
Yes, please.
Just want to say.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was really, really glad to hear some of the things you're sharing with us this evening about what's going on in the background. A couple of stories came to mind while you were speaking. And there is a Latin expression that says, solitudinem faciunt pacem appellant. And the story goes that once a Roman general brought peace to a rebellious province by killing all its citizens. And even his fellow Romans were shocked. And one of them wrote, solitudinem faciunt pacem appellant, which means they create desolation and call it peace. They create desolation and call it peace. And that's a lot of what I see in our world today. And before somebody says, well, that happened a long time ago, just within the last month here in the United States, a video was leaked to the press, and it showed a policeman walking up to a car that he had stopped. And he approached the car and asked the driver for her license and registration. The lady who was the driver had her hands raised and said, well, her license was in her bag, and so she couldn't get to it. And so the policeman, and here sometimes they're referred to as peace officers, said, well, why do you have your hands raised? You know, you can go in your bag and give me the license. And she said, I don't want to take a chance. And I know people are getting shot, you know, by police around here. And the policeman chuckled and said, look, lady, we only shoot black people. You are a white lady. You don't have to worry about that. So you can put down your hands and give me your license. And she said, I don't want to take the chance. So I shared these incidents to highlight the importance of what you are doing, what the Keshe Foundation is promoting, and what we all have a chance to support. The world needs peace of a different sort than what is available right now. And this is why I'm so excited about, some of the things I heard. We're talking about elevating souls. We're talking about prosperity. We're talking about, absence of war, prosperity for all, sharing knowledge, uh, unconditional love, and things of that nature. Broad, uplifting, bright, and good. And so I'm glad to see that there is some sense of urgency from what you're discussing today, that things are moving on in the background, something that we as knowledge seekers are not always aware of. So my wish is that that sense of urgency will continue, and that every chance we all have to participate in this process, we make it a priority. That's all I wanted to share. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. What is important? Some of this microphone is open. What is so important for all of us is to ask a question, maybe on this weekly basis. What have we done for progress of peace? From public, for people who listen, knowledge seekers. You might listen in different hours. You can still send a note to the foundation. This is what I'm doing for peace. This is what I've done. This is how I'm teaching. This is how I'm spreading the knowledge. This is what I spend 1 or 2 hours a week or trying to make people aware. You do not know when it's going to come back. The whole process is we have to come back from the others, that they can learn from us what to do. It cannot be done by the few. The uptake on the what we call the One Nation ID will force a lot of things on governments, present governments. If what we hear goes through and ban goes on Americans and Europeans to travel because they incite war, tools of war, then that'll create a different dimension. Bans on everything else does not do much because we can support it. We need to understand how to change the social structure, because we need to bring a new social. But the problem, or the best part for us, is that humanity is so hungry for it that they eat your arms off to get it. As I said, knowledge in exchange for peace, and we'll do that. But we need to do it in the right way, with the right people that can bring the results, not in 100 years, but in a rapid way, that we can change the structure before abuse takes place of the new technology.
Mr. Keshe, I could read an example of some instant results that have happened from this comment in the chat from Hassan. I don't think it's, I think he had to leave or something, but he left a comment which goes like this. A big thanks to the huge work every knowledge seeker has made to achieve this unbelievable new way of living. May the Creator strengthen your wish to make it global. I can say that today is the best day of my life. My heart is at peace. May every heart be able to feel that peaceful sensation. Love you. That was from Hassan in the chat, the Zoom chat. So I just gave that as an example of someone that's obviously been changed, or can say that this made a big impression on this person, saying that this is the best day of their life. They feel at peace. Just hearing this information and knowing that this process is going on the planet now, and that we're able to talk about it freely, and learn about it and pass on this knowledge and so on, like you're saying. So
I have something I can share about what I've done since our last meeting, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Since our last meeting, I asked a question and you gave the direction. So as of Monday, I've been able to reach all the world leaders again through their ambassadors in the United Nations, and drafted a letter through an email and sent it to all of them, pointed out to them that we didn't hear from them on August 2nd, but two volunteers graciously signed the Nations to Peace while we wait for their own signed documents. And I shared a copy of the signed documents with them, and reminded them that the promises we've made about exchange of technology for peace are still on hold and waiting, for them. And I'm quite sure that they want the benefits for their people. So my wish is that we will receive the document shortly, something along those lines. And so now I'm looking at other so-called peace-loving organizations in the world to try to encourage them to help put some encouragement to these leaders. And that's what I've done.
Thank you very much. There is some miscomprehension in part of the knowledge which I would like to address. And that is, we said and we went out knowledge in exchange for peace. And a lot of people looked at us to do it with governments, which partially is targeted. But primarily, this was done for individuals. This is what has been missed in the whole teaching. We gave you the knowledge, and in exchange of that, we have made a man of peace from you. This is the key. Not going to somebody to go to a parliament to find if your soul can be at peace or you can be at peace because of the knowledge you received. The agreement of us was that we do knowledge in exchange for peace. This is for individuals too. When you receive the knowledge and you can use it and you can benefit by it, or you get enlightened by it to know that the knowledge is there, then we have achieved our target. Which means we've done our work. We have delivered the knowledge, because every soul counts, and we don't need a person or a government to say, yes, we accept the energy system, we accept the medical certification, we accept this and that. We already have kept to our promise. We brought you peace in exchange for knowledge. We gave you the knowledge, and the knowledge has brought you peace. And this is more important than you are the last man standing. You're at peace because you know you have the knowledge. You can save your life. You can do something with it. This is what everybody has overlooked. We are each a government. We govern our own soul. And if with the knowledge received, we have found peace in our soul, the promise of the foundation is kept.
Two guy writes in the chat, yesterday I wanted to change the world. Today I changed myself. It's a nice saying.
May I say something, please?
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, this is Lynn from Montana, USA. And I would like to point out that there are more than one version of America. And I live in a version where a travel ban would not matter because I, like many others here, cannot afford to travel across the state that I'm in. There are many that I know of who worked all their lives here, and through the continuing circumstances that you pointed out of why does the kilo of rice cost more every year? It's the case of the frog in the boiling pot. You don't realize the pot is boiling until it's too late to get out. So I know of many Americans who have lost everything that they worked for years to build up. I know of Americans right now who are losing their freedom because one of the biggest exports in America are the financial instruments they create on court cases and prison sentences. It is the national disgrace of this country. It is as bad as the weapons, because this is a weapon that they are using against their own people, and they're destroying the families and the well-being of the people that they're doing this to. And this has gone on here for many years. So when I hear there's going to be a travel ban, is it going to affect me? No, it won't, because I can't afford to travel across the state. I can't afford to travel to states several ways away to visit my 97-year-old mother. That's the way the facts are in our lives. The history of our lives is that we should be very comfortable, but that's not what happened in our lives. And it all happened through the machinations of the banking system and much more. It happened through corrupt officials in cities and in counties. So there are Americans out here who are living a third world experience already. Now, I sat at a table today with 3 other women. I was the 4th. One of them is privileged to own 3 homes in different areas. One of them is privileged to travel, and one of her travels took her to climb Kilimanjaro. One of them is privileged to travel and lead a lifestyle where she could go to Bali, but then come and spend time at a resort lake here in Montana for several weeks. Their reality is so far removed from mine, but I travel through these groups of people because I know how to speak. I guess I know how to speak their language or just be quiet when they're speaking about things I can't speak about. So I just want you to know that there are Americans out here who already suffer, and they suffer as though they were living in what other Americans might call a backwater country. I hate to see the suffering continue, but I will tell you that these people that I'm around, that I have spoken of, are sound asleep. And perhaps if they can no longer globetrot and go to the next place that amuses them, it will wake them up. But please just be aware that there are a great number of Americans who are awake and who are suffering. I spoke with our friend who is in the hurricane, in the path of the hurricane. Did he have a choice to pack up and leave? Or did he have to stand his ground? The fortunate thing for him is that he could surround himself with plasma energy, and that was better than jumping in a car and getting on the freeway. But this is just another American who is living the different lifestyle than the ones that you see trotting around the globe and posturing themselves as the superior ones. So I want to thank you for what you're doing. I don't know where we are all headed. I know we're headed into some rough times. It could be earth change rough times, as we've already seen partially demonstrated. But what I also see is the attitude of, well, that was in Houston. That won't happen to me. Or that was in Florida. Well, that won't happen to me. But one day something will come that will happen to all of us. So thank you, Mr. Keshe, for what you are doing. And I hope as the world shuts the Americans down, they realize that there is more than one America out here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think New Orleans disaster a few years ago opened the eye of the world to real America. We don't have this imagination that is the land of honey and all good. What we saw in New Orleans showed us the poverty is worse than some part of Africa. So the world has become wise to it. The ban goes on those who travel to incite war. Goes on the totality, because now the different disguises, they create war. As tourists, as whatever. We've seen this very recently in setting up a revolution in another country. People going as tourists and businessmen. Well, it's a good track of it in the future. I'll explain how it was set up. Governments are becoming wise and people are becoming wise. This will not affect, this ban will affect in the paper, like, let's say 5% of the Americans, not the other 95%, because they can't even afford to travel. It's the same as we said when we go to space. 5% of human race may go to space. The others will not. A farmer in Italy growing his olives with us here, who doesn't want to go anywhere. He's happy with his olive tree. It's been there for hundreds of years from his father down to him. This is the reality. But when the bans comes on those who incite and produce the systems for war. There is, for example, a new understanding. Any email communication from any American company which is in the war system will be blocked. It's the way that they cannot even communicate to sell goods to create war. These are the procedures which are in hand, and the governments will enforce it, because they can't speak to the people inside to be able to incite it. Creating these kind of bans is something the other countries see that they can protect themselves from what is to come, what is set up. In so many ways, if we look at it in a totally different way, that we can't have a travel ban and no Keshe Foundation One Planet ID card, because everywhere on this planet is your home. This is how we need to change, and the governments need to educate their people. This is where the change will come. This is one of the only ways left for us to give humanity a chance to start a new life. Fighting it takes too much energy. Structuring it from base is much easier. And this is the attitude and the decision which we go with. We brought a new technology, we bring everything else with it. In next few days, few weeks, you will see the first clinics, Keshe Foundation clinics operating, comes into operation. It'll be announced, as we said, sometime in October. We should be ready for that. where you can actually go and receive by medical doctors. In a coming time, we'll do the same with the energy, with the food, with decontamination. It'll take all of us who are aware of what has happened to this planet, years, decades, to use all the finances we transfer from military to peace application, to clean up the mess which ourselves in the past decades and our forefathers have done in past 2 centuries. We'll look for where we can serve. We look for where we can clean up a new system, a new technology. In a coming time, on the Keshe Foundation website, you will see totally new products will emerge, which where all the factories which are working and getting set up and getting developed will produce their own way to help the society, be given a total free hand to management, because they see what is important and how they can change. We are not bringing people from outside that we want you to manage. The management of the new industries are done by those in Keshe Foundation who understood the technology and understand the ethos of technology. I'm sure as the members, as you said, you can't afford to go and see your mother maybe a couple of 100 kilometers away from you. In a coming time, you can. As long as is your wish to see your mother and you carry a Keshe Foundation card that we can support, you can pay for it. You pay through your soul, you pay through what I've done. Is there. Because we produce as much gold in Keshe Foundation to back ourselves banking. We'll be the only nation which will back itself every penny by gold which is done. Every day, whatever you use, we produce gold and deposit it with the world banking system. You can never run out of spending, and we never get run out of producing gold. We know what Ronald Reagan did, took the backing of gold from greenback, and the whole mayhem started. If gold is going to the backing, the Keshe Foundation, through the new technologies, will deposit daily certain amount of gold in open that people can do. Till we devalue this, that everything goes correct. It's not a dream we're going to do. Peter showed how to make material, and a lot of you missed it. Now, we show it the way it has to be done. We produce whatever the world banking system needs as a guarantee in physicality in their hand. Because we understand the knowledge, we understand the process, we understood the technology of the creation by Creator. Keshe Foundation banking system will be the only currency gold guaranteed, silver guaranteed, plutonium guaranteed, whatever the governments want, we match. Because we know what to produce. This is the beauty of it. When we say we're going to do, and people, where are we going to? We use our technology. South Africa, African nations, European nations, they go on their gold bank reserve. Keshe Foundation banking reserve will be its own gold, because we produce it through the nature. Because the new technology allows us. This is how we destroy dependence on and make man to be free. This is the beauty of this technology. You want to go and see your mother, you don't need to think, would I see her next time when I have money to move? It's my job as head of Keshe Foundation to make sure you can do. It's part of giving from us. I can give knowledge, and as I said in one of the teachings, take from my soul and you receive it. Mention my name through my soul and you receive it. We are not talking fairy tales. We're talking about the reality of new science that a lot have to get used to. When Peter produced the material, he didn't know what it is. He's taken to the lab, it's tested materials. I would like to know which government would like what for us as a banking system, KF Global Banking System, to deposit where? 100 ton, 200 ton? You spend, I produce. I means all of us. We are not talking to go back and do things. We are going to do things that can back a lot of things we say. New manufacturing. We are specializing each factory in a specific field to be able to operate. We don't announce anymore to create a mayhem we saw created by a bunch of terrorists. We are the setting up of world police force is we on the card. All these people you saw creating mayhem, you will see them in courts very soon, but not in the courts you are used to. Everything is getting negotiated. Everything is getting negotiated by the governments who understand the change and are there to create the change. Stealing patents, becoming millionaires out of it, killing scientists to become millionaires out of it. All these has been registered in certain way that it will be responded to in a very short time. Maybe even before we put the banking system in operation. I was taken to a meeting in Sicily about 3-4 years ago. I was invited to a meeting. Investors wanted to invest in the energy section of the Keshe Foundation. And in that process in Sicily, I came to understand the investors, who they are. And they explained to me, we do not go and do what you saw in the newspapers for past decades. We have become educated. We do it through banking system and through science. And it's more profitable than killing people. In so many ways, we give life, we don't kill for, but we share knowledge and the wealth with the people which are there. If somebody asks you for a kilo of gold, you deliver a kilo of gold. We make these systems freely available across, that we don't have one center. Everybody in each country produces. Your commitment is, you produce 1 kilo, half a kilo you deposit in the Keshe Foundation banking account for the others to use who don't have the machine. We'll guarantee gram by gram gold card for gold, real gold. And you will do it, not me. I share knowledge freely. And beauty of it is in the patterns which we released. All it is, you're delivering what is written. The flight system, independent flight systems are getting tested. I was talking to people, know I'm talking in the background. They've received the vibration lift a couple of days ago, but they didn't know what they're going. So people will achieve space travel, not the governments. Because I work round the clock. This morning, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, continuously, different part of the organization of Keshe Foundation around the world, I monitor, I support. Because to create peace needs life commitment. I've committed my life to it. You will see changes, instructions, which is going out to bring that change. Those Americans who cannot travel the borders because of the poverty, most probably will be the first of those who travel into space because of the commitment of the soul to peace. It is very easy. We are not sentimental anymore. We are a scientific organization. We have it. We can back it and we can deliver it. And we can enforce it. As I said, I'll enforce peace through knowledge and you will see the structure. I have a committed management team with me, and we are committed to it. And every way, every possible way is taken to make sure it happens the way we want it. Nobody can push us in our timetable, nobody can push us in our decision, nobody can push us in anything, because we are a self-sufficient management team. We know what we are doing and we are committed to peace. It's just putting everything in order. And now the order is coming. It's not that all we go to Bahamas, all go to whatever is. We go where we become peaceful at our soul. And then we learn, we let our soul to travel, that our physicality manifests itself at a point. Those you say, the ladies on the table, wall threading, if you learned, if you could understand the position of your soul, the strength of your soul, you could wish, you could have understood, you would have been with your mother. You don't need a boss. Many people do it. Now we teach everybody to be able to do it. Any other question or any other point, please?
Well, Mr. Keshe, there was a comment in the live stream from BJ. Mr. Keshe, how can you be sure these new concepts will be successful when the new war, what this person calls the new war, will be 5G technology? We as humans are energy and frequency and vulnerable to being controlled by 5G. We already see bizarre behaviors and addictions with those owning a smartphone or smart dumb phones, smart quote dumb phones.
I think it's something you have to understand to apply it yourself, then you see it. There is a technology which goes over the Keshe Foundation, and we showed this to Americans some 3-4 years ago. The system goes according to the peace of the soul, so no one can reach. We have shown the system. The beauty of it is, as we explained, when the American naval forces arrived in Romania, the naval officers walked off on embraces that they could not protect us. But in fact, they came aware that there is no need for war because even the latest machinery doesn't work. The same thing now sits with highly developed First Nation world. I have seen systems being in a position I am. I understand all these things have no meaning anymore because a lot of technologies are getting developed on the back of new sciences, not only the Keshe Foundation. It's arrogant to say that we are the only solution, but with the freedom we create in science, the beauty of these new technologies by the other scientists will show themselves as well, when it's suppressed or abused in different way. You can block everything. You decide what you receive. I use it in my house. You can develop yours. It's been taught. You have to understand, go over the teachings and develop it. Nobody can touch you because your soul is not received by your physicality. That's it. You get worse than 5G. If 5G is your problem, let's go look at it, Nick, go by order of magnitude. What are you going to do with G10 in space? You're going to walk all zombies in liquid shape? Or you understand how to protect yourself that is still the same? This is a fear of non-existence. When you understand the new technology, there is no magic. understand the science of thought. I've given you every knowledge for man to live, not the toys the humans have created, but the real condition in the space that is 1,000 times worse. So if we get G20 in deep space, what's going to happen? Will be streamlined and non-existence, or we know what it is and how it's got to be happening. You have knowledge, the backbone knowledge, to go to G100 or 1,000, if you like to say it. If it's going to be G5, so much worries. What is the worry? Simple tools, simple understanding gives you the hand over all these things. You see, we came through the science, and through the science now we can enforce conditions of peace. Now they say, what's got science to do with peace? What science has got to do with soul? Now, through the science, you're educated that you know what to do, that it cannot be enforced on you. When I explained to you a few minutes ago that we set up our own banking system, we back it, most of you know, oh, the guy's going big-headed. But you miss part of the information which has been sitting there. We can produce out of fresh air gold, silver, so we back it. So simple. What's the next they can come up with? Who has the better computers? What about Iranians walking into America with 100 kilo of gold each? Every bank says, hello, good morning, please sit down. Who cares about what the president says? The ban is on the brain of the understanding of the leaders, not on the reality of the life. Let me explain to you as an Iranian who went through the Iranian Revolution. There's been ban on the Iranians for years to move anywhere. But I've seen Iranian children traveling into European airports with a blanket in their hand as they cuddle. A child of 3-4 years old can cuddle a blanket, and the stones on these, the blanket worth tens of millions, which are exported out of Iran as a wealth. And the government officials knows it's coming. The child is given British passport immediately with the blanket he carried. I've seen it with my own eyes. When you have wealth, government's policies don't agree. When you have the knowledge, policy governments don't sit. We have to understand we are all the same. We bleed the same, we suffer the same pain. Why do we need to bleed and why do we need to suffer? Just for a few to be? My biggest wish is that the Earth Council members, the Universal Council members, the core members of the Keshe Foundation will never reach that point. Humbleness and servitude has to be the priority over anything else. You will see misconduct, in time it will correct itself.
Keshe?
Yes?
Good day, Mr. Keshe. Jalal here.
Yes, Jalal.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
You,
As you know, I decide if we answer or not, or Rick will answer it.
no problem. I will answer it for you.
So why do you ask the question?
That the people will learn. I do not want to keep all the questions and the answers to myself, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Mr. Keshe, you approach one nation in particularly because it's its knowledge. For this knowledge to across all the nations, are you approaching, let's say, in general, the Arabic nation and especially the Muslims nations in a specific way? Because if it's own mentality, every nation have own mentality. So how we, I know, I know the knowledge, and sometimes I have so much problem to reach these people because of different mentality. Are we considering this mentality in the new teaching and new processing?
Every new technology has had problem to be understood. And every new technology, for those who don't understand, has created a problem for itself, for that type of mentality. And I've been witness to it, and for years has baffled me of the level. And when you speak to the Islamic world, or you speak to the Jews, are worse than the Muslims if you go into them, and if you go in the real sanctum of the Christianity and Buddhism, is all the same. They all think they're the only one and they're the best one and the only solution, and then they have to make the other ridicule that they confirm they exist, they can control. And this is the beauty with the Keshe Foundation. We have no gurus, we have no churches, we have no leaders, and the leader of us is our own soul, our own understanding, correct conduct. So I was a young boy, I've said this before, when the Americans landed on the moon. I still remember second aunt of mine, my father's great aunt, walks into the garden and she curses the Americans. I said to her, "What's your problem, aunt?" She says, "You know, they say they're gone to moon to discredit Islam." And I said, "What do you mean?" "You know, in Islam, moon is holy, because in the Shia belief is that Ali bless his name has with his sword split the moon into two and the rest of it. That's why in every sign of Islamic world moon we see." And she was claiming that they never been on the moon. It's just they lie to discredit us, that now it's not pure and clean. A few months ago, when I was in Dubai, discussion with the people came on the table that the Saudi Arabia is spending money to go into space, and so does Dubai and the rest of it. I wonder when the Islamic leaders are going to change the tune when Saudi Arabia lands on the moon. Or would they never land on the moon? Or we change the book to fit the time. Or we say, no, we don't touch the science because something was said and we have to stick to what we said. Should the Islamic world bypass the moon to go to Mars and Jupiter and out of space, we'll never see a Muslim on the moon? Or we become to understand is the teaching of Muhammad bless his name is considered to be holy and understood than some things that the others made for benefiting them. When you work with the Islamic world, when you work with the Christian world or the Jews, it's no use teaching. Some will do. Teach their soul. Then you find out you don't need to teach them. When you talk to them, they already know. That was the old way. Use the new way, the new technology. Understand the process. You don't need to waste your time on fighting and teaching and being disappointed. I wonder, with what we sit here, with what I saw with my aunt when I was 8, 10 years old, cursing the Americans to discredit Islam, was she really talking the truth? Did Americans ever land on the moon? Was it the promise of a president who had to be falsified to become true? As I said, a challenge to DARPA, and then put a challenge to NASA. And as you all know, I've been banned. I'm the only space scientist, nuclear physicist who's banned any communication with HQ or any NASA staff. Any NASA staff that speaks to Keshe or Keshe Foundation will be dismissed immediately. That's the policy of the biggest space agency, fear of the Keshe Foundation Space Technology. This is the policy written in NASA HQ. We bring management who tell you this. I can show it to you in writing. So now we ask the boys from NASA, we ask from the European Space Agency. We have all these tools. We look into the deepest part of the space and we say it's 100,000 light years away, 1 million. Why no camera has been focused on the moon to show us the footprint of Armstrong? It's so near. Was the aunt correct? Who do we believe? The new science we can see in deepest part of the space, but we can't see a footstep on the moon? Or a policy to discredit the others? To keep the promise of we will be there. Which actually, if we look at it, was incited by one man, which now the NASA is trying to wipe his name off everywhere, Mr. Lambert. From the things which has happened in the past in Germany with him. There is a very fascinating point. You have to excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that, I had to do something. They say there is 5 Jews who have changed the world. The first was Moses. He says everything is law. The second is Jesus. He says everything is suffering. The third is Marx. He says everything is capital. The fourth is Freud. He says everything is sex. The fifth is Einstein. He says everything is relative. I wonder what's the sixth, and if he's going to be a Jew to change the whole situation. We have to understand what we expect from life and how the new technology needs to be used to change that position. There is no time to fight, because then it goes against the ethos of the Keshe Foundation for peace. Why are we fighting to create peace? We are back in the same track. Or we live a peaceful life, we create a peaceful condition and we live our life, let the others to join us. It will be my greatest pleasure when you sign to the Keshe Foundation ID, you get your banking system, your bank account, which is all will be the same, and you can walk into a station, you can go into a bank, draw money, get on the bus and see your old mother. Then I've made the change. I gave your soul a peace and your mother's soul a peace that she has seen her daughter. I don't need to fight to put ban Americans. I elevate the soul of the Americans. Then I've created the peace.
If it is from my side, I already signed it.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Mr. Keshe.
You're welcome. Is there any other point?
I have a small question.
Who's speaking?
That's Boniface again.
Yes.
Just to make sure we haven't left anybody behind, I notice we have members on the Earth Council for all the continents, but I don't see Antarctica on there. Am I missing something? Or
We do not consider anybody living there. These are all expats.
Okay.
From different continents. We haven't seen any, what do you call it, people from South Pole or North Pole. We consider as part of European continent or American continent. As you know, your American Vice President responsible for greenhouse effect, Mr. Al Gore, in one of the speeches of global warming, he said the situation is getting so bad that the penguins are endangered because the bears are eating them because they can't find anything else to eat. And somebody in the audience got up, stood up and said, excuse me, one lives in the North Pole and one lives in the South Pole. How could they come together? And that was the end of the Greenpeace movement, or what the global warming movement. Depends what we want to accept, as this was done, as you know, a few years ago. And from that day on, we haven't heard from Mr. Al Gore anymore anywhere. So we haven't seen anybody living there, and the other side they live is considered as one of the 2 continents as part of the Pangaea.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Keshe, it's Lynn in Montana. I wanted to thank you, and I just wanted to share. I don't think I've been thinking quite big enough as far as the travel goes. And I'll give a small example. I have a very old laser printer, and I was thinking today, you know, this is getting old and I'm going to have to start checking to see where I can find one to replace it. I walked into a thrift shop this afternoon, and there was a brand new one that had never been used that was the same model for $5. So I just haven't been thinking big enough about the bus ticket, as you call it. But I want to thank you for pointing that out, because I talk this way to people all the time, and yet I set a certain thing aside in my own life of, well, how am I going to do this? And part of my issue is I've had siblings who have offered me the let me give you some money for the plane fare, and I said, I am not going to go into an airport and be treated like a common criminal by TSA. I will not do that. So along the way, I've made choices too, and I wanted to acknowledge that when others have stepped forward to be generous, and I've just said no, I will not do that, and I have. But it's despicable of what they are doing to people in airports, and I don't agree with it, and it goes against what I would call the peace of my soul. But thank you very much for all that you're pointing out today. It's really quite exciting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is what is for us to enlighten ourselves in what is the capability of us without needing donations or somebody else to do it for us. And in respect to what you say, the situation in the airports, as you know, we travel extensively, and I call it the strip club nowadays. They take your belts off and your pants drops off. They ask women to take their bras off, and I call it just like a pole dance. And it's very funny, what you say is very correct. We see all sorts of funny things happening. But on the other hand, it's for our own security to make sure we make them richer. This is something which, if you travel the way we do, is we give our water bottles back before we go through the machine, and they sell the same water to us on the other side 3 times, 4 times more. Which part of it is terrorism? And the funny thing is, It's the same company delivering before you buy in the airport and the one after the airport, before the customs and after. But on the other hand, we need the securities. I'm one of the greatest believers in national securities and in security apparatus, because as Dr. Parvi said, they have created condition that people have become desperate to do anything to get anywhere out of the situation they're in. And this has changed the situation. I've been traveling for nearly 40 years plus. We used to walk through customs. Customs were friends. Now, the way it's set up, everybody's everybody's enemy. And this sells a lot of water. This sells a lot of things. But on the other hand, it sells a lot of hatred. And this is the whole target. Most of these things have started since people in Europe have taken charge and they're trying to destroy the rest. And you have to understand, the European American put together does not make 10% of the world population. And maybe it's time to tame this 10%. At least 5% of this 10%, and then the rest will live at peace. We got to, as a human race, to start looking at the reality and the position of it. I remember in 1980s, I used to travel 3-4 times a day. A week, sorry, and actually a day too, because I used to land in Paris, Frankfurt, Amsterdam. By 8 o'clock I was home back in Manchester. And I used to do 2-3 times in different part of the Europe, because that was part of my business. I had offices or agents I had to see, it was too much. So, but I had one rule, I had young children at home, I had to be home before they go to bed. We didn't have these restrictions. We knew most of the custom officers when they were building the new second part of the Manchester airport. I was such a huge traveler that the British Air Authorities, airport authorities, through a number of the frequent flyers, they asked me to be part of the member of the board to advise what things needs to be done in the new airport that it brings it to 21st century. And they used to pay me a huge amount of money just to go and sit in Piccadilly Hotel for 4 or 5 hours every couple of months to see what needs to be done in the new airport. And I remember one day when we started, the first 5 minutes, the alarm went off as a fire alarm. We all came out, we got paid the envelope, and that was it. There was no meeting till the next time. But now we have created, through selling arms, terrorists, which in a way we need, there is some danger. But on the other hand, it's spread to be, it came to be, go back to the first aircraft hijacking done by Yasser Arafat, who started all these commotions more or less. He was paid to do it. Terrorized to get his land, but he was paid to do it to be able to do other things. If you look at the history of air traffic terrorism, 1972, Munich and the rest of it, all came out of Palestinians, which they were not given the land, the right to be. But those who abused it to their benefit. What is the Swiss bank and of Yasser Arafat? Billions in it. He took billions from Iran. Who's controlling them? Who was sitting on them? We have the same situation in Bill Gates' situation. Bill Gates and his wife hold 30-odd billion, they say, in a charity fund. Why is not getting used for improvement of life and other billionaires around the world? I was told, you're stupid, why did you share this? You could have become very rich. I am the richest man on this planet because I shared my knowledge with all of you. What is the wealth? Is to bring pleasure. And I gave my pleasure to you by sharing my knowledge. And that's all it counts. Man has to mature. They say, what is theology and these things got to do with science? Because this science allows theology. This science allows peace. This science is the cornerstone of change. Those who say this, it means we want to carry on with the views of the past. As I said, not in my time, not under my watch. I'm no Moses and no Jesus. No suffering and no need to create condition to create suffering in the future. We don't look to give handout. We look to give the freedom that that card is yours. You don't need to ask your children, and you don't need to get on a plane. And when you get on a bus, you still get the same. Nobody checks anything on a bus or a fast train. But this time, when you travel with the peace that is me believing in peace. That is what brought me. I don't buy 2 tickets. I don't buy 10 holiday days extra to be. I take a ticket because I want to see my mother. I'm there. I do it the way I'm happy with, and I give the pleasure of the presence to my mother. Then when we learn we don't need to abuse, the whole thing stops. As I said, we had a Swiss guy sitting on one of our teachings in the knowledge seekers, and I said to him, for what we know, the color of the cross of Swiss passport is the color of blood. And when I explained to him, now we know all the gun manufacturing during the Hitler time done by the Swiss under the mountains by the money stolen from the central banks of different nations, killing so many people, which now the books has opened up. I said, I don't think that cross, that color should be on the passport. Because it's a color not of peace, but in a way of actually color of the cross, putting somebody on it. After a couple of days he left the teaching because he understood how misrepresented the truth is. We have to forgive the past. We have no choice because we've done so much wrong to each other that it'll take another 5,000 years just to clean up. Look at the Armenians. They're still after 100 years crying for what they've done to them by the Turks. We need forgiveness. But not to forget that we don't repeat it. Otherwise, what did the Iranians did to it, what the British did to the Syrians, what the Americans did to the others, it'll never end. But with the eye of understanding the soul and elevation of the soul, we can overcome it. We can thank we are here, at least we learn, it will not be repeated. And we need that changing point that through the new technology, we open the space to us that now we don't need to stay in the village of the earth, we become part of the universal community. This is not a wish. I brought the technology, I delivered the technology. The beauty of it is, we brought the knowledge, none of you is using it properly. We are developing the knowledge and delivering the knowledge, and benefit of it, we give it back to you for you to have a peaceful life. I must have been a very crazy businessman to do such a thing. But it's a crazy science anyway. It's time for change. And the change will come with the new. You will understand with the release of the new IDs, one nation IDs, because we don't have a passport, will change the course. Millions of people will sign to it. And then we are millions, but we are citizens of this planet, we become a governing force. This is the plan, we'll deliver it. If I'm alive or not, you will deliver it, the management will deliver it, the Keshe Foundation supporters will deliver it. The banking system will be the only people who carry, we bank every money cent you draw with gold. We go back to the old time. You have it, you spend it. We have it because we created it, we spend it because we see the time to be pleasure, to be out, to create peace. We pay the wall making machine management with gold not to make. If Lockheed Martin pays to their weapon strike technology guy 100,000. I give him 200,000 in pure gold every year. I wonder if he works for Lockheed Martin or he works for Keshe Foundation to develop the same thing for peaceful application. I win. I, as us, will win because we are correct. Today's teaching is to understand the evolution, what this technology is going to bring now, not in the future. Hopefully by next week we will see the first prints out of the One Nation ID card. Hopefully in a very short time we'll announce the name of the banks which are part of the Keshe Foundation banking system. Then you understand we mean business. We mean we are in a business of peace through the enforcement, delivery of the new technology. I will deliver the free energy system. I'll deliver the wireless technology. I deliver the new medical systems, the new feeding stations.
Mr. Kashitz Lin is the 6th Jew from Iran.
Could be.
Thank you. Perhaps he did better than the other 5 combined.
They all did good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Let us plan for peace. We have the knowledge. Let us work to bring peace. Let us be the leaders to be in the position that can deliver through technology, not talk. When you can walk to someone and say, what's your name? A man hungry on the street, you sign him in, you give him a card on the computer, laptop you have, and he receives, and he can go and feed himself. And you say the condition is, you find another hungry man, and the condition is, you never touch, and you become man of peace. And he has to sign to it. The first time he takes money out of the machine, he'll be surprised. Then the second time as well. He might eat a lot the first time, he goes sick, but the next time the same, but the third time he knows it's there. The biggest problem will be for the banking system to stop Keshe Foundation ID cards banking system. We have a plan behind it, there is no problem. We enforce peace through knowledge and to a setting up of the knowledge. And used by man to create peace through the knowledge. As I said, everybody looked for government to receive knowledge in exchange for peace. I gave you the knowledge for you to have peace at your soul. Then you change the soul of the world leaders. I already done my job. You were looking in the wrong pocket. The pocket was your soul. You're already sold. We brought the technology, we taught the technology. Past few months we brought to understand you're responsible for use of the technology to correct conduct. Now we deliver the full whack of it. We are addicted to fear, we are addicted to war, we are addicted to confirm we exist, and in reality we don't need any of it. If we speak about addiction, What is addiction? We are addicted to different ways of different things that we have to do, and we know the track record. Somebody's microphone is open in the background. What is addiction? Can any of our doctors in the background explain to us what is addiction? Or anybody else? What do we call addiction? Anyone? Or would you like to go to Wikipedia?
I was going to say, Mr. Keshe, I can provide you with the Wikipedia definition. Just a second here. I'll bring it up and we can view it actually. Okay, so addiction is a brain disorder characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. Despite the involvement of a number of psychosocial factors, a biological process.
Sorry, I got dropped off the minute you put the page up.
Oh, that
Okay.
happens to me when other people share.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
Okay.
Read again, please.
Okay, yes. Addiction is a brain disorder characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. And despite the involvement of a number of psychosocial factors, a biological process, one which is induced by repeated exposure to an addictive stimulus, is the core pathology that drives the development and maintenance of an addiction. The two properties that characterize all addictive stimuli are that they are reinforcing, as in they increase the likelihood that a person will seek repeated exposure to them, and intrinsically rewarding, such as they are perceived as being inherently positive, desirable, and pleasurable. Addiction is a disorder of the brain's reward system, which arises through transcriptional and help me with that one, Guy. Epigenetic mechanisms, and occurs over time from chronically high exposures, high levels of exposures to an addictive stimulus, such as morphine, cocaine, sexual intercourse, gambling, etc. Delta FOSB, a gene transcription factor, is a critical component and common factor in the development of virtually all forms of behavioral and drug addictions. 2 decades of research into Delta FOSB's role in addiction have demonstrated that addiction arises and the associated compulsive behavior intensifies or attenuates along with the overexpression of Delta FOSB in the D1- type medium spiny neurons of the nucleus accumbens. Better look up what nucleus accumbens is, I guess. So I thought it would be some part of the brain. It's the region in the basal forebrain rostral to the preoptic area of the hypothalamus. Okay. I have a mouse brain. I don't know why not a human brain, but Okay, so suffice to say, it's part of the base part of the brain. We go back. Due to the causal relationship between the delta FOSB expression and addictions, it is used preclinically as an addiction biomarker. The delta FOSB expression in these neurons directly and positively regulates drug self-administration and reward sensitization through positive reinforcement, while decreasing sensitivity to aversion. As described by two groups of researchers, addiction exacts an astoundingly high financial and human toll on individuals and society as a whole through the diverse adverse effects of drugs, associated healthcare costs, long-term complications such as lung cancer with smoking tobacco, liver cirrhosis with drinking alcohol, or meth mouth from intravenous methamphetamine. The functional consequences of altered neural plasticity in the brain and the consequent loss of productivity. Okay, that was part of that sentence, sorry. The classic hallmarks of addiction include impaired control over substances or behavior, preoccupation with substance or behavior, and continued use despite consequences. Habits and patterns associated with addiction are typically characterized by immediate gratification, short-term reward, coupled with delayed deleterious effects such as long-term costs. Examples of drug and behavior addictions include alcoholism, amphetamine addiction, cocaine addiction, nicotine addiction, opiate addiction, food addiction, gambling addiction, and sexual addiction. The only behavior addiction recognized by the DSM-5 is gambling addiction. And the term addiction is misused frequently to refer to other compulsive behaviors or disorders, particularly dependence in news media. An important distinction between drug addiction and dependence is that drug dependence is a disorder in which cessation of drug use results in an unpleasant state of withdrawal, which can lead to further drug use. Addiction is the compulsive use of or performance of a behavior that is independent of withdrawal. Okay, let's.
Would you like to go up? Would you like to go up in it? And there are a few points. Let's look at one way, or I put it the funny way in some of my presentations. It's going to make you a bit thinking, but it might make you a bit laugh. Is we are all born addicted. From the second we are born, as we are even in the womb of the mother, we are born addict. So addiction is part of our structure. What are we addicted to? Look at the birds, look at the bees, look at the man. We are addicted to reproduce, to guarantee the survival. And for addiction, we get paid a stimulant. So we are all born to be addicts. We are born addicts, not to be addicts. We are born to be addicts, and we get a reward. In our sexual behavior, what do we get? Pleasure of sense for a few seconds, and that's a paymaster, that's a payment. And we have a reason for it, that we guarantee the survival of the race. So if we were not addicted, we choose once, we make love once, and there'll be one child, and that's it. That'll be systematic. But is reward returned? But we get addicted to the reward. So in a way, human race are born as addicts from the time they were born. We were born. We're addicted by rewards of the pleasure to produce, to guarantee the survival. So in a way, addiction is part of our structure. What are we prepared to do for it, to get it? And what are we prepared to lose because of it? Drugs, sexual, alcohol, gambling, all falls in one pattern. Self-gratitude. I've done my job. I managed to spread the egg. I managed to take pressure off me. The reward is in a way the same. What is in it for me? Am I getting satisfaction out of it? So, in so many ways, if we go back to our teaching, if we understand, most of the addiction has a emotional reward, but involves a physical action. So this means this part of the emotion connection to physicality has to be looked after. So what do you do in the soul of the body of the man? What do you do with the brain of the man? The connection between the physicality and the emotion has to be corrected, needs to be put right, needs to be connected. So in so many cases, you need to elevate the emotion. Zinc oxide, CO2. But the connection has a physical connection, because I make love to get the reward, but I need to use my body to get the sexual behavior to become habitual to it. So it has a connection with magnesium, because it connects the lack of the physicality satisfaction or repetition of the motion. But internally connects your soul with your physicality of the brain. So there is a lack or shortage or need for the connection between the internal structure of the brain, that you don't need this to elevate or to increase the emotion. So you need the potassium. Internal connection. You have a CO2, you have a zinc oxide, you have magnesium, you have a potassium, you have CH3. Now you have to find out what energy is lost in the process of gambling or sexual behavior, that it needs to be fulfilled as an energy that becomes the reward for the body of the man, that you can fulfill it with CH3. So CH3 as an energy reward is part of your connection. This stimulation is how much we can change. Do we want to change? Or through our addiction, we satisfy a self-behavior, ADHD, attention deficiency, because I need attention, to myself, for myself. So this comes to play with omega-3, with the production of the cells, which can be as part of delivery of the reconnection line of the proteins inside the brain of the man. Highly heavy on the behavior part than on the activity part of the omega-3. So if you can get this process correctly balanced, that you don't increase too much energy, you don't increase the balance in the emotion, but you balance between the magnesium and the potassium side, you have cracked the addiction. I've done this many times. And as was in the teaching with Caroline yesterday, she was explaining as part of the teaching I've done in the past, that certain addictions you are advised not to touch, to reverse. You can reduce, like smoking. If you are addicted to tobacco and you were smoking for 30, 40 years, 20 years, whatever, your body has adjusted. You have to bring that addiction under control in a slightly different way, that the body does not crash. You don't create other illnesses. But other addictions like sexual addiction, gambling addiction, drug addiction, you can all bring it under control. I've had people from England who were drug addicts and smoke addicts, and after the first day they could not even stand the smoke because there was no reason for it. There are people who internally in their brain structure go for addiction for fight, creating fight in the family, because they get satisfaction of it. It's kind of addicted, they had to. But if you understand the reason in what needs to be satisfied, you'll see no more. It's the same with the sexual behavior, the same with the drug trafficking, what gets involved. We can do everything, but we have to sort out the problem. And the problem is, we are born as addicts because it's part of us. We are addicted to sex because we don't do it once and that's it. Once in a lifetime or twice in a lifetime. We do it frequently and we get addicted to taste the others and the other things and the other things with it. I always say the problem with the Western world is that the youngsters' sexual behavior is, we taste this, one girl to another boy, one boy to another girl, every week, every 2 weeks, every few months, a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. It's like going, you go to the Chinese, then you go to the Italian, then you go to the South American, then you go to the Mexican, you pick up a taste for different foods. Or is it the law of what they say, no sex before marriage and stay faithful within the marriage? But they say, how do I know what I miss if I don't taste? Then become addicted to it. We see this heavily in the Western world. It might not sound, or might sound strange to the people in the other part of the world, but if you live in Western world, in England and other places, change of sexual partner on a weekly basis is changing your shirt, because it becomes habitual, become addicted to what's next. In the West, in the East, this is unthinkable. I've been brought up in the Western and the Eastern culture both, and I've seen it and I understand both of it. The whole nation, especially British young generation, are addicted to this, alcohol and sex, because there is no boundary, there is no morality left, and then become addicted to it and you do it. How do we change the society? It's the society problem. How do we change the structure? It's unthinkable. When I told this to Caroline when I met her years ago, she said, you're crazy. And when she moved and lived with our children in England, she said, you are right, we should have never brought them to England. You have to understand what as a nation we become addicted to, what gives us a kick. Some we accept because it's good, or we take pleasure, we think it doesn't harm us. But addiction is a physical, emotional need which needs confirmation of existence. If you can give the confirmation to an addict, being heroin, cocaine or whatever, that he is worth what he is. He's a human being, he is respected. Increase his level of his soul, which is a massive dose of specific type of zinc oxide. You have to produce these on a specific way. It took me years to develop it. And it's a bullseye. Then the man stands and says, I don't need everything I did is revolting, I will not understand it. But then you have to support the physicality and the emotion with the internal structure of the brain, which is based on potassium. Then you need the linkage between the proteins of the physicality and mental internal connections, which is with potassium, magnesium, which the best link we have is through omega-3. And then you need energy, because whatever is damaged needs to be rebuilt. That you don't look for that position of energy, because adrenaline gives energy, releases a huge amount, but you have to be able to substitute it, which is CH3. It's a specific dosage, a specific way. You can walk away any addicts from any addiction. The only addiction you cannot stop is sexual behavior, because it's ingrained as part of reproduction we have. But you can bring it under control to understand, this is what I need, what I want. This is what I said in my old teaching. The mistakes of the Prophet past will not happen not in my time, not under my watch. Because we understand the addiction. We understand the pleasures of it. Why somebody goes and gambles. I stood in Atlantis Hotel in Bahamas, used to be my playground for years, and it's the biggest casino in the world. Used to be the biggest gambling place in the world. And I stood and I watched people losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a night and walking away. And I couldn't understand how can. Two ways. It comes freely, they don't care. Or it comes to self-gratitude, I can lose because I exist. Then I've talked to many of them. I say, how can you lose $250,000 on a table at night and walk away? He says his business is good, I don't even feel it, it's there tomorrow morning again. But one thing I always said to them, you're addicted to confirm you exist. You're getting other people to work for you to confirm, I'm here, I can. But try to use the money somewhere else to help somebody with it, and then you see you can. I watched world wrestling champion losing $800,000 in one night. The boxing champion. And I asked them, how can you lose? You go to Vegas, you see the same. This is the pattern which is, it can be stopped. But you have to understand, we are born addicts. Because with this addiction, we have reproduced. We go to reproduce again and again till we get it right, and there is a child that we can guarantee our survival. It's a rabbit or a rat or a mouse in the cage. We go for it because there is something in it for us to reward. So if you understand this, we can change a lot of things. A lot of addicts, given with the pens, if you create the right pen and you just put in the water in the drink, but you have to create a combination of it. We did some tests with one of the doctors who's present here last year. They change, they feel a change, but they won't follow, because then they don't confirm their existence. But then you have to follow with a heavy dosage of omega-3 for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and heavy zinc oxide dosage of a specific way. The specific zinc which you produce for addiction is very, very specific. You have to create. Can I share the screen, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Keshe.
Okay, I think I'll go. Something new on it. It says desktop 1, desktop 2. I don't have a desktop 2. Let me check something. There's something strange here, please. Stop sharing. I have a problem Just stop. Let me reset my system, please. I have to disconnect and reconnect for the system to become operational. Okay, let's try again. There's something to do with my teach. Oh yeah, it's okay now. Let's come back in. Okay, what you need, if you go back to the teaching of the last week, I have to move this up there. I have to move this up here. Okay, go back to the teaching of last week. If you remember, I explained combination boxes. If you have a combination box, you have to create a specific way of what you need. You have a zinc oxide because it's emotional. So in a way you use double boxes, an area, volume area. So we go, if you go, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4. What you need to do, you need a volume area. So this is to do with zinc. You need that much zinc. I'll explain to you when you understand more. Then you need to create a dimensional strength, which is potassium, magnesium, and then you need to do, because you're dealing with both sides of the emotion, the two half of the brain, you do the same. But at the same time, you need to add dimensions of energy. But at the same time, you need to bring in the game played by CO2 to be able to connect energy to all. There's one factor left, which is most probably the most important one, is allowing, in a very, very, very simple way, in a, what do you call, understanding the process of emotions which are connected with physicality, which means you put, you put zinc oxide in a given positions. This will support the soul and the emotions, this part. These zinc oxide connect to the physical body of the man in a different way of addiction. So what you need to do, you literally take ganses according to the progressive or the process of the addiction. What does a drug addict need? Why does he inject? What does a sexual behavior addict is? You choose boxes. If you do the same repeat with 3 boxes especially, then you can do much better job, because then you control most of the things. Do you want to take from the soul? Do you want to take from the interaction of the long emotion? Or would you like to take it from physicality? Then you can walk in and walk out. Within most probably the first 2 or 3 weeks, you see the walking ending of the addiction. If you made this, you understand something very, very close by will come to reality. And this is the amino acid. Sorry, you disconnected me. Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Sure.
I lost my screen. Okay, it doesn't matter. You just touched something. Something fell out.
We still see your screen, so maybe it's
Yes, I've lost my teaching screen. Sorry. You disconnected me totally now. Yes, Madame de Rosa flying around doing things. Women have some advantages and some disadvantages sometimes. Yeah, I've got to get it back. Just wait. Okay, I'm back. So what we see is the amino acid. If you make a combination of amino acids of which part you're dealing with, and then make the GANs of it, you more or less, near enough, depending on which stack you use, you have achieved omega-3. Near enough. And the whole thing costs less than maybe $10 to make. Do not forget you only use the gases of it, not the liquid gas, the plasma water, and not the gas of it. This is part of the development to understand the totality. That's why part of the teaching last week, now you can understand how to play, how you make things. Don't forget when you make the boxes, the first box and the last box need a balancer. Not an energy source, but let's say a usually green or a red LED light is just about right. And you let it run for a few days. I need to do it this way, then you can see it better. This is Zn. This is magnesium. This is potassium. Magnesium, potassium. CH3. I'll put 3 on it that you understand. And then you have a secondary CO2. I put carbon here, then you understand. And then you need the zinc. You got to understand these zincs are not the same as the zinc in the center. This zinc in the center, especially the top one, is the level of the soul of the system. Because when you have a system like this, it feels like this. These are the zinc, one in the level of the potassium because you need it internally to satisfy. You don't need that much because these two together will feed the zinc of the emotion of the physical sense, and this makes all the connections and the energies needed. This is more or less near, depending on certain people, it's more or less a good guide for making systems which can overcome any kind of addiction, except sexual addiction, because that is ingrained in our DNA and in our RNA. We cannot change it. Otherwise we stop producing and become, what you call it, chemically modified beings. Any questions?
Mr. Keshe, the potassium and the magnesium, what are you using to create those?
I usually go for vegetation, and I use, the easiest for me was homeopathy tablets, because they carry the field strength and they're very good to use it, but it needs a full understanding of it. If you look here, we haven't used any calcium whatsoever, because there is no need for production of new cells. It's just changing the strength in certain cells.
Do we use magnesium as metal or magnesium as salt?
I use magnesium through vegetation, because the metal has a problem, then you have to convert it. If you can find magnesium, some of the homeopathic magnesiums are the best. I found that because they're already in the strength balance, you just convert it. But you need to know what you're doing. It's not just getting it because it's there. But you can use potassium's highly rich vegetation with potassium magnesium help you.
So therefore we don't make plates there?
No. These are emotional factors that you're not dealing with. The plates, if it's a need for magnesium, like cramps, leg cramps and that kind of things, you can use that, because that links to the copper. But for the brain of the man or for the emotion of the cell, you don't. This is not a medicine, this is understanding the process of the field. So we don't enter a medical application, it's an entry understanding the process of the evolution in the structure of the brain.
Thank you. How we connect to those cells then?
Usually you use the wires in different layers.
Zinc wire, copper wire, nano-coated?
You choose. I always use normal copper wire.
Thank you.
Because after a while you see all your wires get nano-coated anyway. But
thank you, that gives a better idea.
Pardon?
That gives a better picture about the understanding of the process.
I wish I had. We have pictures of it. Do you know who's got all these pictures? Very good. It's Dirk Lorenz. He's taken many pictures of these plates. If he could be kind enough to release it in my website, which is created there, you can see it. He took many pictures of these settings.
Well, if he would be so kind to share them.
He is very kind, but depends what benefits one. But this is there. It's somewhere in there. You can see it. One of the first ones. I used to have one on my table and many back in my lab, which I could manipulate.
We can check on the archive.org for all versions of the websites.
It's usually connected. You see in these boxes the copper, you see the CH3, you see the CO2, you see the zinc oxide in all the way. It's very clear. Very clear in it. These are the ways now that we have understood more, and that's part of the teaching I brought last week. Systems which we can use. But the point is, if you take these ganses and then make the gans water of it, then you will understand certain things that, for example, this box here carries a potassium salt. This box here carries magnesium salt, even though you started with the sodium. Those salts which people been looking for to find, you find them here. Because now you're in the plasmatic condition, so the amino acid on the top cannot be produced if the right salt of the thing was not there. And the connection is very simple. I use a simple mesh copper, mesh copper, mesh copper. But these systems, your copper behaves according to zinc if it's connected and produces. That's why you see different materials being produced in the box. You see green, you see white, you see what do you call it, orange, which is in some boxes you see blood, and it's all in the same box. But if you take this gas waters and make the same system in the dynamic way, then you have a different process. Those medical doctors who are working on these things, if you make the same organization, you take it out first, you produce the boxes, then to take the material out and place these back into the dynamic system, the same thing, then you'll see different things. You produce new materials in a way if you can do it back in. Any other question?
Your extra layers.
Pardon?
Your other layers of your boxes, would they just have the same repetition, just in
No,
the layers?
then you have to understand if this is to do with the brain and the soul, then this is the body. This is the lung section and the heart. And this is your stomach and the rest of below chest. And you have to find a position of the body in respect to it, which organ you have, what you're talking about. Once you make one of these boxes, it's very easy. You can keep on using it in different way of loading. If you look at the box for the second layer, if you call it 1, this layer 2 and the 3, if you look at it this way, because you're looking down, I'll always allow this here, this environment here, only for heart, where I split the rest here for the lungs. Heart has a red muscle tissue, lung doesn't. So here you can use copper, but here you can't. You put the copper on the edge, which has nothing to do with the white cells. Then when you go to the, even if you look at it in a way of the discs, your certain part, when you have a disc problem, in the boxes you put magnesium, because magnesium is a ligament connection, is what you need for your discs. Or cartilage. You can do a lot of things in the box like this, but it needs a lot of experience. I've worked on this for years. You pan out the pancreas in the bottom one, your liver, your kidneys, and you produce more or less precise amount. And precise strength for the disease, but it needs a lot of knowledge.
How would you suggest that people approach that knowledge, Mr. Keshe? Like, you wouldn't have, you know, I know you, and you would not be measuring out to the microgram.
I never measured. As I always said, God has no scale in the universe.
Right. You probably don't even have a measuring cup to measure. But
No, but you work on the
sense.
principle. Let me explain. You work on the principle that the body takes what it needs. So you don't need to measure it. The body does the measurement itself.
But you have to have some rough guidelines that somehow
you provide, you make it
you set
available.
your intention in a way. You've set your layout here. You've visualized that before you even set up. I mean, when do you start visualizing what goes where? What part of that process? Do you visualize it first and then you manifest it according to that? Or is it you sort of feel your way through and you're changing things each moment as you go according to how you sense?
No, it's you need to have an extensive knowledge I have in body of the man.
Mm-hmm.
So everything
the
is
tissue
considered.
salts and different.
Yeah, everything else is considered. Yeah.
And it's not just one teaching. It's a accumulation of various aspects. Like it's part of your family, for example. The idea of creating different things like this is part of the one part of your family, as I understand, your history and so on that way. So others
I
may
come
not
from
have
world
that.
of medicine, man. So as you know,
Right.
I don't know how much of it's come through the brain that way.
Well, is it a brain thing? That's the thing. Is it have to go through the brain, or is it
The
accessed some other way? Is the knowledge?
It's the knowledge.
Is
But
that
let me
passed down?
explain. Let me explain. This structure applies to every being in the universe who has a physicality or not. Because then you decide which tray you play with and which one it is, how it is. You structure the being in a way that you can manage in bits. As I've said many times, the physician of the future of the space will have a wonderful time. Because the knowledge of understanding different problems for different creatures of the God will bring the scientists, the doctors to the verge of feeling to be God, because then they can touch everything and they can reach. And the exploration of being able to help will feed them more knowledge. I carry knowledge from depth of the universe, so for me these things have been set up. It's very easy because I understand the totality, and as I said, as we mature more in science, we can do more, we can show more. You can pinpoint accuracy which organ you want to grow and where there is a problem. If you have a heart valve problem here, you can literally pinpoint to change it. If you have a blood blockage in the veins of the heart, you can literally work with it and change it. Shall we call it a day, or if there are any other questions?
Yes, we're up to our 3.5 hour usual sort of time to wrap things up. There was Lauren had a question in the Q&A. Goes, it has been said that trees are vertical people. Can the cells of our human bodies be considered vertical people as well? Will the one planet, one nation resemble this structure so that humans become vertical people as well? Looking from the outside, the bluish planet already looks as one.
Yeah, but if you call the vertical people, what do we understand about the soul of the vertical people? Where is it and how is it positioned? Maybe next week we think or we teach or we inspire each other on that side. Because the soul of the plants are very much different structure than the structure themselves, position them, not the structure themselves, in a very different way than the humans or the other animals or other creatures on this planet.
Okay, well that could be a good topic for next week. We can ponder that.
If the pay is good, I'll turn up.
Okay, we have to have something to entice Mr. Keshe. I'm not sure that is. I'm not sure what he's addicted to that we could offer.
Well, no, sharing knowledge for.
He's addicted to us.
What was that?
He's addicted to us.
He's addicted to us. Well, as long as we show up, perhaps you will then.
There's no problem. Beginning, it was just you and me who showed up, Rick.
Yes.
The point is sharing knowledge, if it's used the right way, is fascinating because it shows the advancement of the race. We come to share knowledge to bring advancement and peace, and we know exactly what we got to do. But there's always we give a man to fail a chance not to fail, and if he does, you are there to give a helping hand to go to the next step and then start again. But this time we will achieve everything we are here for, to open the doors, because it's been taught enough that half-cooked can create a lot of problem. But this time we'll do it correctly and we go through it. There shall be no problem. The only thing, as I said, we have to consider the new condition, the new position that the foundation is to create and is creating, to create world peace. And we have all the tools to do. We have tools to disarm, we have tools and knowledge to create everything that every government needs to guarantee that the banking system works, which is owned by Keshe Foundation. And at the same time, we have systems to deliver if there is a blockage. So the choice is to work with us to change the condition, and at the same time make life comfortable for every being on this planet. No man needs to die of hunger on the streets of India, and no man needs to live with billions of crime on his hand of what they have done to the others, that the soul cannot be elevated. Thank you very much for today, and I hope we share more knowledge next time in a different way. Thank you very much, Rick.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Keshe.
So, Rick, we cannot give him the 500 now. We need to change the currency.
Okay, well, some gold that you create might be one way.
Plasmatic gold and 500 thanks.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
My soul goes to all of you. I hope humanity finds peace.
Yes, I am present. See.
I am present too. I am present.
I am present.
I'm present.
I am present.
I'm present.
And there's many present through the chat and Q&A.
For those who don't understand, the present means I give from my soul for elevation of the others.
Present I am.
Thank you very much. Would you like to take us out with a song?
Oh, yes, thank you for that reminder. And get that lined up here.
Let us know next week what you've done to let the world leaders and the other human beings to be enlightened, that we can learn from you, that we can do to repeat.
Okay, thank you for attending the 191st Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, September 28th, 2017. And let's go out with our slideshow and audio music.